Welcome to the first ever hybrid episode of Sport Teched Up. We are joined by our legal analyst, owner of the Stutz, Brown and Self law firm, who's just voted Dufferin County's favorite law office, Jason Self. Good evening, Jason.
Good to be here.
You've long been a friend of Renfrew, of RCI Basketball, and it's nice to have you finally on the pod. After a big Jays win, can I get your feedback on that victory?
Yeah, well, I didn't see so much as one pitch of it, which is probably why they won. But I understand Hutch took a one-hitter into the ninth.
Yeah, and totally jinxed by Buck and Tabby, talking about facing the minimum numerous times, and then he walked his second to last out, and he was pulled, and Jansen came in. So I was fairly mad about that, but that's the potential that Hutch has, and great facial hair, and he's finally living up to potential.
What was the pitch count?
Did you get that?
No. What was the pitch count? Do you have like an on-staff research guy that'll run and search that up for us?
Right now, no, I do not.
I'd just be curious as to why they yanked him with one out to go in the ninth with a 4-run lead.
Sorry, we're just having some technical difficulties here. Jake, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay. So, what's your take? What going into the final stretch of the final third of the season, can the Jays do it?
Well, they're in it now. What are they? 7 games over 500. They're in that second wild card spot, so it'd be hard to say no at this point. We're too deep in the season to say it's a fluke that they're where they are. It's not going to be easy. The teams that are coming up after them are good teams for sure.
Do you think they rushed Lowry back? You saw he came back from a finger injury. They skipped rehab, and then he looks like he pulled a back muscle yesterday.
I don't know. I mean, he's pretty young. I mean, the Jays they've never shown a hesitation to be slow with guys getting back. I mean, they've got Lind about to start rehab now. And, Encarnacion, if there's ever pressure to bring a guy back, it's to bring him back. They've been pretty patient with him. So, I mean, I think they're gonna look at a lot of things, including what the player's saying. And Lowry's pretty young. If he's saying he's ready to go, then what are they going to do?
And I guess one of the criticisms of Lowry his whole career is maybe going too hard, being too much all heart. He took a pretty aggressive turn on the first base side, and then he missed the bag. I think that was just the adrenaline pumping.
Yeah, well, he's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't he? I mean, he you gotta love that passion, but how many times does it maybe get the better of him? And yeah, I mean, he's so amped up out there. You gotta wonder if that leads to some of these injuries, because this guy's turning out to be fairly injury-prone for a fairly young player.
And you look at his replacements, you got Kawasaki's hitting near 290. I don't know if that's sustainable. And they've brought in a really decent bat in Valencia. Now, he only tends to hit left-handers, but some serviceable pieces there.
They are on a temporary base. I think you got to have Lowry in on a day-to-day. The big hole is with Double E being out. You got to get him back. I mean, he's at this point in his career an elite hitter in this league. And, that the more pressure you can take off the starting pitching by putting up some runs at this stage of the year, the better it's going to be.
Not to mention the insurance he provides for Bautista. All of a sudden, you got to maybe give Bautista more to hit, and you're not going to see pitchers pitching around him as much.
Yeah, and you see it, right? He's kind of chilled out lately, right? And I don't think he's getting the pitches to hit. Now, he's still taking his walks, I think. So his on base isn't bad, but the power numbers aren't there like like they have cooled off, but I mean, he's just not getting the pitches.
Now, as it stands now, the Jays would travel to California in a one-game wild card playoff. Who would you be sending to the mound for the Jays in that one-game playoff?
Well, that's a good question. Um, I think you have to go Burley. He's been consistent. He's got experience. He's played big games. I don't know who else you'd march out there.
Like, I guess the trendy pick would be Stroman out there, but that's a lot of pressure for a 22-year-old. You never know how he's going to
A
handle it.
one gamer, right? That's the key.
I just figure, we've waited so long for the Jays to make this run, and it could be just for one game playoffs. I guess we'll take it, but I just figure it's our luck that they're going to be one and done.
Well, one game on the road, too, right? It's not even like they're going to play a home game.
Yeah,
Well, that's if it ended today. I mean, now they're only, they're only 4 back of the Orioles. They do have a couple of sets left with them.
Yeah, 7 games after tonight. They have 7 games left with them.
But the Orioles look good. I mean, that's the thing. Anyone who thought the Jays are going to walk into this 3-gamer and sweep them, I mean, this is a good ball club.
Okay, so we're going to talk about 2 topics here. We'll go with your passion with the Leafs first, and then my passion with the Raptors next. So the Leafs, colossal collapse again.
Yeah.
What do you think of their offseason? You could talk about Shanahan. You could talk the addition of Kyle Dubas. What are you thinking?
It's hard. I don't know what to think at this point. Every year it seems, since they stopped making the playoffs, that there's off-season moves that are made, whether they be front office, coaching, player personnel, and every year by about this point, you start to feel that optimism creeping back in, as though maybe there's something to look forward to here, and maybe some of these changes have really sort of changed things. This year, the catchphraseology seems to be the team culture is going to change, because they've brought in guys to change culture. And I don't know. I mean, it's been such a run of utility from so many different angles that it's hard for me to start getting optimism, because they've changed a couple of guys that, quite frankly, will never put skates on and play. So I think they still have the same personnel issues that they had before, as far as the guys that are playing on the ice. As you saw, it's very hard to make moves to improve the team drastically in 1 or 2 fell swoops, and so I think they're relying again on internal development. These guys got to get better internally.
So what's your take on this whole analytics fad? Is it a fad, or could this change the culture of the Leafs, and or is it putting pressure on Carlisle and Nonis that they have to change with the times?
I don't know. I think it's always, there's that risk when you bring in a new guy, whether it be Shanahan or this Dubas kid, that you expect change to be immediate. These guys could be very good additions, but GM changes, management changes, those are long-term things. And you saw with Brian Burke, there's no such thing as an instant turnaround. Unless you're going to draft a Sidney Crosby, there's just no such thing as an instant turnaround, especially in this day and age of the salary cap. So when I think about this year, I question how much meaningful impact these guys are going to have. Now, long term, well, yeah, maybe so. But, I think that the issues the Leafs faced in the past, which was that never-ending demand to be better immediately, and sort of at the expense of the draft, get players for today, and at the expense of tomorrow, trade for players for today. Dave Nonis already brought the culture of patience and trying to stockpile talent and giving kids time to develop, and all those things that the Leafs have, quote unquote, done wrong over the years. So what Shanahan brings to the table, I don't really know. What this wonder child brings to the table, I don't really know. I know that, if we look back, we're talking baseball, J.P. Ricciardi was a wonder child at one point. Alex Anthopoulos was a wonder child at one point. Hey, arguably Brian Colangelo was a wonder child at one point. These guys don't put on the pads and play. It can be hard sometimes to have a real meaningful impact.
James Reimer became a bit of a whipping boy, I find, in the Toronto media. I was kind of surprised that they re-signed him. What do you think about that signing and his long-term future with the Leafs?
Yeah, I was a little surprised too. Although I think what really happened there is I don't really think either team had any options. I think that at the end of the last season, it looked as though he was going to hope to find a new home and enter his restricted free agency. And I think the Leafs were prepared to maybe, put a deal together to allow him to do that. And I just don't think there were any teams looking for him, at least not at the value the Leafs had him. So I think from the Leafs perspective, you get a very serviceable backup goaltender. And I think the Leafs believe they've got the answer in goaltending that they've been looking for with Bernier.
Yeah, I think Bernier, we see what goaltending can do in the playoffs. I think Bernier is, the cat's meow. I think they can really ride him. And I don't know, as Reimer said, maybe the media blew out of proportion the conflict that Carlyle and Reimer had.
Well, I think Reimer wants to be a starter. And I think that any good goaltender in this league needs to want to be a starter. I mean, nobody's going to want Reimer to be content with being a backup, just like they don't want the fifth and sixth defenseman to be content to play limited minutes. They don't want the guys sitting in the press box to be content to sit there. They want guys to be hungry to get out and play. I think everyone would respect that. Reimer was a starter. Reimer took the team to the playoffs. I mean, I think everyone gets carried away thinking the Leafs did something. I mean, they took Boston to 7 games and they had a collapse, so didn't really accomplish much, but they did make the playoffs. And he lost that position to Bernier. Now, I could see Nonis thinking, Bernier still is young, and he's young in terms of experience. I'm not sure that he started 100 games in his career, has he?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. He might not have.
So I think we've been hearing about this guy so long because of his situation in LA and backing up quick, and I think people think he's got more experience than he does. The Leafs goaltending duo in general is still relatively inexperienced. Having a guy like Reimer around is not going to hurt. Now that's Reimer of 2 years ago. A Reimer of last year that can't handle coming off the bench and can't do injury time fill-in is not any good to anybody. So that was the concerning part to having him as a backup. When Bernier went down, and he comes in, and that little stretch towards the end of the season was a disaster. Let's be honest.
Okay, so it's early in August. We're still, I guess, about 2 months away from puck drop. Are the Leafs a playoff team?
No, I think, what have they missed? 9 out of 10 years?
It's been a stretch.
I graduated law school in 2004, and that's the last time that they've only played playoff hockey once since then. So you have to, I will say no every year until they start making it with some level of regularity, and they have to make it more than squeaking in the number 8 spot for me to consider that they've turned a corner to some sort of expectation of success or routine, making success routine. So no, I don't think they're a playoff team because they haven't done enough to get any better other than hoping that the guys they have continue to mature and develop, which is a possibility.
Okay, so let's switch gears now and talk about the Raptors. Now, over the weekend, we were spending some time together. Now, I don't know whether you were trying to egg me on, get me going, but you said you felt that the Raptors, it was a bit of a flash in the pan this year. You're going to really expect a step back. Were those your true feelings, or are you just trying to get me going?
Okay, well, first of all, I don't know player development and basketball the same way that I feel I know maybe some of the other sports. My concern with the Raptors is the same concern I had with the Leafs after they lost in 7 games to Boston. You don't, that's not doing anything. You know, you've made the playoffs. Yes, that's great. They won their division, fair, and that's great too. But realistically, they went out in the first round of Brooklyn. So they're either going to get better from here, or they're going to slip back into the same position they too have been in for about the same period of time as the Leafs. And my concern is when Colangelo came over, and in comes T.J. Ford, and they had who else was on those teams? They had Garbosa,
eventually Dwayne O'Neal, which was kind of the end of the run.
And I think people were so much celebrating that they won a division title that they forgot that, yeah, but sandwiched around those years were plenty of missed playoffs, and they didn't win a round. So I don't want that to happen to this team as well. I don't want everyone, including their own players, to be so busy celebrating this success that we forget that it's a young team that does need to continue to develop. You know, I would think some of the teams around them have gotten better. I mean, the East is still weak, is it not?
Oh, I think it got a lot more weak, and that's one of my points. You look at Indiana, who was the second seed going in. They just lost Paul George for the year with a horrific leg injury. They're not re-signing Lance Stephenson. They're in big-time trouble. Obviously, Miami's taking a step back. Is Cleveland a top 4 seed? Maybe, and it all depends on Kevin Love, I guess. I think teams to look out for, Atlanta is kind of a team that's going under the radar that I think could make a real push. And Chicago is so dependent on Derrick Rose's health. I don't know. But I'm not going to see this issue. This is all heart for me. I think the Raptors are going to be better, and for a number of reasons. One of which is their young core. You've got Valanciunas and Ross, who are they were sophomore starters, and 2 of which they're the only team to start 2 sophomore starters in the whole league. So I think they can get better. They re-signed Patrick Patterson, a Kentucky grad. He's only 25. He's a typical stretch 4. He's going to get better. And we hope that with DeRozan playing with the U.S. World Cup team right now, you're hoping that he's getting better. And I'm looking at the San Antonio Spurs, who these players have played together for years. And I'm hoping the Raptors can use that model where they can build chemistry and continue to make that push. I like what they did with getting Lou Williams from Atlanta and dumping John Salmons. He's instant offense off the bench, can play both guard positions, and they've got some youth with Bruno and Bebe. Like, I think, and I'm going to give Ujiri, to me, he can do no wrong right now. He's had a good run, and I'm really excited for the Raptors this year.
I think that there's a couple of things that are encouraging about the Raptors for me. First of which would be that last year they did win some big games against some big-time clubs. I recall that there was a game where they went into Indiana and they took it to the Pacers, and to me those are good signs, right? That you've got a team that's not just banging up on the weak guys, right? Because the East was, let's be honest, the East is weak, but they did play well against the good teams as well. The other thing is that we're not in another one of Colangelo's rebuilding years. I mean, that we went through a stretch of 3-4 years where every year he was making all sorts of player personnel changes, and basketball is a game of gelling and understanding what your mates are doing, and that just can't be easy for coaching staff or for the players. So those are good signs. I think it's key that they've kept the nucleus of this team together for 2 years now. I guess we're really going into the third year of this team. What concerns me is it's all comes down to Lowry, really, for me, right? Because he spent a career underachieving, then he overachieved in his contract year. What are we going to get this year? If he's healthy and plays like he did last year, him and DeRozan are as good a 1-2 as they're legitimate all-stars.
Yeah, that is the question. I mean, I think the Raptors had to sign Lowry.
I don't think they had a choice.
I think that is a great question. I think at the end of the day, after this, this 10-minute conversation about the Jays, Leafs, and Raps, you can just tell that we are just aching, and Toronto's just aching for some sort of champion.
I can't cheer for the Rock and the Argos anymore. I gotta give.
Now the TFC is I guess third in the Eastern Conference, but I just can't.
They signed that Jermaine O'Neal guy, eh?
Jermaine Defoe, I think. Okay, so this is a hybrid episode, so let's move on to the teched up part. I guess a fortnight ago, our tech guru, Brad Bennett, and I put together our top 5 songs. And this conjured up some discussion, throughout our community. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to go over your top 5 songs. You're a little more educated in the music genre and indie rock and Brit pop. So, first of all, what you've got your list, and I can see your list here. What were some of the criteria that you used to help decide your top 5?
Well, first of all, music is very subjective, so there's no being educated. You like what you like, and that's fine. And you know me, I've never judged you or anybody else for the music you like.
Right.
I think what I found when I was trying to go through the exercise is I realized I like bands and artists more than I like individual songs. So I can tell you easily who some of my favorite bands are, and when it comes time to actually pulling or extracting a particular song out, it got very much more challenging. So what I was doing, is sort of pulling some of the best from some of the bands that I like, and a lot of time either just good music, good guitar or something like that, but also I guess as we all do, we sometimes link music with a period of time in our lives, and I'm no different. And so some of the bands that I like, a big part of why I like them is because of a time in my life that I was into that music. So.
But don't sell yourself short, Jay. You've played in a band, you've played guitar, and you're well read in the music industry. So I think you do have a little more backing than Brad or I. But let's to it. Number 5, I giggled at this one. I Am the Resurrection, Stone Roses. Tell us about that.
Okay, so Stone Roses, killer band. Came out at a very interesting time, late 80s. Music was a very strange place. In the late 80s, you had a lot of different movements going on. And Britpop and sort of the British rock revolution was just about to explode. And you had this band come out called the Stone Roses that were doing things and producing sound that nobody was doing. And frankly, you could put on a Stone Roses record today, and it sounds just as good as the day it was released, if not better. Always liked the Stone Roses. John Squire is a killer guitar player. He does things with his guitar that still amaze me. And I Am the Resurrection has always been my favorite Stone Roses song because it's got a guitar solo in it that's probably, I'm going to say, 5 minutes long, and it's my favorite guitar solo that I've ever heard. So, it's not a wailing guitar solo like a Randy Rhoads or a Van Halen or something like that, but it's just perfect. So that's my number 5.
Any religious overtones with this song, "I Am the Resurrection," and then which led into their second album, "The Second Coming"? Are you aware of anything there?
No, I don't know. Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I think the whole link with The Second Coming was the album took so long to come out. The original album came out in 1989, and it was massive. The album was absolutely massive. They didn't put out a second album until 1994, and it came out after a lot of sort of internal squabbling and speculation whether it would actually ever come out. So I think that's really where The Second Coming out title came from, but I don't really know, I suppose.
Okay, number 4. Who you got?
Number 4, yeah, this is probably the only song on the list that is on here purely because I love the song. It's "Hold On" by Tom Waits. So this is Tom Waits is an amazing artist. He's a very strange artist. He's not the easiest musician to like. I don't know if you've listened to any Tom Waits in your life, but
Well, it reminded me of like a Leonard Cohen splashed with a little Bruce Springsteen, but heavier on the Cohen.
yeah, he's sort of a blue collar singer songwriter, right? He's like, he tells stories through his music. It's very blue collar, very smoky bar kind of vibe to his music. Some have actually criticized him for that because he's basically, now he's been putting records out since the 70s. This guy's, I mean, his list of records is jaw dropping. How many records this guy's put out?
Is it Rush-esque?
Yeah, we're in the 20s for sure. Yeah, but he, he has some very, very tricky songs to get to like. They're not the easiest songs to listen to. The last place you'll ever hear him is on a radio. They're not poppy in any way. But he's also got a way of writing some of the most eloquent, beautiful songs that just have a way of always sounding good. And not many of the bands that I listen to are real sort of singer-songwriter styles, but I would say that this song, "Hold On," definitely.
Yeah, to me it was kind of off the charts. And that's obviously going to surprise me because I'm kind of top 40, if you will.
Yeah, now, that song did appear on The Walking Dead, end of season 3. It is in there. So Tom Waits has a huge sort of cult following. He is not a off-the-charts kind of guy. There are a lot of people that listen to this guy over there.
Okay. Number 3, something from your youth, I'm assuming here.
Yeah, "Drain You" by Nirvana. Nirvana was again, this is a situation where it's one of my favorite bands of all time, and so I had to pick a song from the band. And this is one of my favorites for a number of reasons. Nirvana, of course, came out in 1991 with their... actually, they came out in 1989, same year as the Stone Roses with "Bleach." But that was sort of a blip on the radar. It was, of course, when "Smells Like Teen Spirit" came out that everybody knew who Nirvana was. And, of course, these guys would be, the reason why, Kurt Cobain's the reason why I got out of bed in the morning for a few years there, and the reason I joined a band, the reason I played guitar, one of the reasons I loved music. And this particular song, "Drain You," was one that I spent countless hours listening to. I always thought it was the best song, the better song when compared to "Smells Like Teen Spirit." I always thought it was just as poppy and just as radio friendly, but for whatever reason, it was always one that's under the radar.
Yeah, it does have that poppy radio feel that I like. Any idea of what the origins of the song or what the meaning is?
No, I don't. Nirvana tunes are kind of a mystery, right? Like Kurt Cobain's lyrics, they're not an open book. And, I think just because he died so young, there's never been a lot of opportunity to explain a lot of what the hell he was talking about. A lot of the stuff that he wrote, I read a book about Cobain in his writing, and it was like a lot of stuff coming from just really dark and strange places. Frankly, a lot of it probably drug induced, and a lot of it very difficult to decipher. So I think for us kids, like what was meaningful was more the tone of the music overall than what was actually being said.
Yeah, and just because Cobain and Nirvana were notorious drug users, it doesn't necessarily mean that every song is about that.
No, I don't think so at all.
The line that really stuck with me was, "I travel through a tube and end up in your infection."
Mm-hmm.
And that just really stood out for me. And we could batter back and forth about what we think that is, but that's the beauty of music in itself.
Yeah, and I think like if you're spending a lot of time trying to break down Cobain lyrics, you're kind of missing the point, right? Like the reason Nirvana was so good, it is so good, is because they came out with a totally new music style. You know, the power chord, for lack of a better term, grunge rock, is what replaced things like Poison and what Motley Crue and sort of that world of rock and roll, which has its highlights as well, as we all know. But it was just so different, and so the tone of it again was so different than anything we'd ever heard before. And it was the right music at the right time, right?
Okay, number two, a band that will be a lot of our listeners will know, an Oasis.
Yeah, Oasis. Don't look back in anger. Oasis probably. I've probably listened to Oasis as much as any band ever. Um, just consistently put out good music, and this is obviously no different. I remember when this came out, my good friend Chris Claridge called it our generation's Stairway to Heaven, and
Wow, bold statement.
it's a bold statement, and I laughed. I laughed at him at the time. Fast forwarding 20 years, it's been 20 years since that song came out,
Ugh.
and I think he's right. I think he's right. It's long, it's bold, it's pure rock and roll, and it's almost impossible not to like that song.
Well, Claridge, he is no prophet, but he does see things.
Yeah, well, I never thought I'd listen to Claridge about anything, but so I actually, after I did this list, I was just goofing around on YouTube, but I do read a lot about music. I was reading some album reviews, and for some reason that led me to look up just onto YouTube, and I watched an Oasis concert last night. So for an hour and a half or so, I watched an Oasis concert at Manchester 2005. And, when I was done, I was just incredibly motivated to pick up a guitar and rock and roll. And, like, that's what Oasis does for me, right? Like, they are just a quintessential rock and roll band, who I should also point out has a rock and roll lead singer. They've got a rock star lead singer. And tell me the last band you've heard that actually has a legit lead singer. I mean, it's a dying breed, right?
No, that's a great point. That's a
dying breed. Love him or hate him, Liam Gallagher is a rock star. And that's something that I lament, is it's dying in our music industry today.
Okay, you're number one. What do you got?
Number one, Black Monday, Lowest of the Low. So this is probably the most obscure tune on the list. Lowest of the Low, probably my all-time favorite band.
Canadian.
An incredible volume of work. If you look to the actual music that the individuals that comprise the band have done as well. They were a real flash in the pan, really, as far as commercial success. They had probably one of the best, if not the best album ever written was Shakespeare My Butt.
And from like a hit pop perspective, that's an album I can listen to from start to finish, and I just love it. It's lyrical genius.
Anyone who puts the time into that record loves it. There's just no way around it. The lyrics are amazing. The music's amazing. You can sing along to it. You can dance with your girlfriend to it. You can get married to it, for Christ's sakes. It's all good, right? So now the Black Monday song came on their second album, which came out in '94. And I think it's just one of the most amazing songs ever written. I mean, the lyrics are incredible. The music itself is very good. And, it's one of those tunes that for me just, it reminds me of a lot of different things in my life. And I could listen to that song every day of my life and never get old. So it's the irony is it's not even off the best Lois Low album, but it is my favorite Lois Low song.
So for people out there looking for different music, need a kind of a catalyst, need a different change, Jay's brought 5 really different songs for you guys to check out. Number 5, I Am the Resurrection, Stone Roses. Number 4, Hold On, how do you say that, Tom Waits?
Tom Waits, yep.
Drain You, Nirvana. Don't Look Back in Anger, Oasis. And Black Monday, Lowest of the Low. So check those songs out, and if you like them, maybe check out the whole albums. I think a lot of you who are into music would be pleasantly surprised at these artists and these songs. We're going to move on to our last segment of this podcast, and it's something I've been looking forward to for a long time. Since your professional background is in law, I thought we'd do an episode or a segment called Is It Legal? So I'm going to pose a couple of scenarios to you, Jay, and in your legal and personal opinion, I want you to let me know or let our listeners know if it's legal or not.
Okay, and for the record, I have no idea what you're about to ask me, so...
Well, you are right.
Should I start the clock and actually bill you for this? I don't know.
I don't know if I can afford you. I'm a teacher. Summer's off.
Yeah, I just want it clear that I don't have a clue what you're about to ask.
Okay. Well, I've asked you this one before, but is Adam Lynn's beard legal?
Illegal. And you know why?
Why?
I think it's leading to the injuries. It's the only that or change of diet. I don't know. Something's changed here. This guy, he doesn't really play, so I don't know why he's getting injured so much.
Very David Wells-esque. Just like something could be living in there.
I think it's quite possible that there's a nest of baby robins in there, yes. Because it looks dirty.
Okay, baseball premeditated, practiced, rehearsed handshakes. Legal or not?
Tough call. I'm going to have to say illegal, because every time I see one done, I have this unbearable sense of embarrassment for the people doing that. Like, you and I couldn't do that. We couldn't see each other at the Emily Park and give each other the full on, I don't know, I saw Batista and Jose Reyes there the other day, and they're doing some sort of a point to the sky and slapping their arses, and I don't know what. Some time put into these things.
Maybe you can look at a scouting report instead. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So next one, I was, me and my Kentucky gear, eh? Is it legal to wear a team shirt and a team hat? So, for example, I'm wearing a Kentucky hat and a Kentucky T-shirt and go out into public. Is that legal?
Well, I would say that's legal.
Okay.
But if you were to add in, say, a wristwatch to the equation, so if you're wearing a matching hat, wristwatch, and shirt, that would be illegal.
Interesting was the wristwatch is the straw that breaks the camel's back there. Okay.
You don't often see somebody committing to a team enough to buy jewelry. Right?
But you do see it in, like, vehicle attire. Like the the flags, the personalized license plates.
Well, I'll tell you something that's illegal. Is I was getting a case of beer for this last weekend that we were on, and there was a guy with an England flag, and I'm like, I think the World Cup's over, and I'm pretty sure England was not very good.
They scored 1 goal, if I believe, if I'm correct.
That's illegal. You know why? Because all you got to do is roll your window down and pull it out. Like, it's not a big job. I just don't understand why you're still driving around in your Toyota Corolla with that thing on.
In his defense, he could be a Commonwealth Games advocate. And England had a nice little run there, so...
Well, are they on a good run?
Well, I think it's over now.
Okay. Well, he was hoping for Hamilton 2015 or whatever.
Oh, yeah. All right, what about taking your shirt off while you mow the lawn?
Interesting question, because you know what? I was going to the bank today, and there was a young man walking down the street, Main Street in Orangeville, with his lunch in his hand and his shirt off. That's to myself, that's illegal. I think we're at a place in society where you gotta wear a shirt. You know, now, cutting the grass, I'll be honest with you, I've done it both ways. And I'm, not the most attractive of men with my shirt off, so, maybe it's legal. But I think when you're cutting your grass, you're on your property, that's what makes it legal. The minute you enter downtown, it's illegal.
Or uptown.
Public place.
I say it's illegal all the time. Okay, how about Carly Rae Jepsen's Call Me Maybe?
Definitely legal. There is no way you're ever going to hear that song and not have a good time. I don't care if you're in a restaurant, you're at a bar, proposing to your girlfriend. It doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing, if that song's on, you're a winner.
Okay, this one might be a little bit in left field, but you and I have both been observers of human behavior for, going on 17 years.
Probably our sociology background.
Yes. Notice the trend of guys stepping up to a urinal and having the need to spit into it before, they do their business. What's with the need to spit? Legal? Illegal?
You know what? I'd say that's illegal. But there are a lot of rules surrounding the urinal, and I think it's getting more complicated as time's going on here. Right? So now we've got rules surrounding, how far back you can stand, where you can sidle up to another man versus where you can't. The one I thought of this weekend at the mall when I was there is there was 2 stalls, 2 urinals that were high, and there was one that was really low for kids. And the one had a guy at it, so I had a choice to make, and I had to choose between going to the one that was my height or peeing the little tiny one down, but at least I wouldn't be standing beside the guy, and I didn't know what to do.
That's a tough one.
Frankly, there's no book to consult.
Maybe that's one of our next bestsellers, or first bestsellers.
So I went to the stall anyway, and just went there.
Okay, last one. Breakfast for dinner.
Legal to the extent that it requires very little planning. Illegal because it makes too many damn dishes. I hate breakfast for dinner when it's time to clean up. You got bacon everywhere, it's greasy, you got the potatoes, there's always the egg that's stuck to the pan and you got to scrape it all off. And then it gets in the water. It's illegal at the time of cleanup, but always great at the time of planning, because all you got to say to your wife is breakfast for dinner, and you're done.
Wow, that was incredible insight. Now, this segment is going to lead into our contest for the week. You're going to, the first person to email Jason at jason@noack.ca, that's noack.ca, and ask him, and is it legal or not question, will win a signed copy of My Big Sister Sue, written by yours truly. So, email your question of whether something is legal or not to Jason right now. Jason, thank you very much for joining us on this first ever hybrid episode of Mr. Nowak's Classroom.
That's great. Happy to be here, and I hope all your students that listen to this, one day bring their legal work to me.
Yeah, follow their dreams. That too. All right.
This is a dream. I don't know, Ice.
hey, you take care and keep fighting the good fight.
Okay. Peace out.